Welcome to the Topic of the Month with Kim Wardlow, an AINC original podcast. It's not easy being blind or going through vision loss, but we'll help you navigate these waters. Press on. Push forward. You've got this.
Hello, welcome to our Topic of the Month podcast. I'm Kim Wardlow, your host. I'm the Executive Director at the Audio Information Network of Colorado. And today we will be talking about advocacy, and Loraine Hutcheson from the Colorado Division of Vocational Rehabilitation will be joining us. Last month, we had a great discussion surrounding behavioral health and various aspects of that. So this month we're shifting to advocacy, but please note that our new podcast, Blind Sight, airs its first episode this week. And Bill Lindgren, who was our guest last month for Topic of the Month, is hosting that. And he will be exploring many more aspects of behavioral and mental health and much more depth than we were able to in just 4 short programs. So stay tuned, be looking for that. That's launching this week. So as I said, I'm so happy to have Loraine with us. Loraine and I have known each other for many, many years. So I'm excited to have you here today, Loraine.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it.
So for all of you listening, just to give you a little bit of background for Loraine, she is a vision rehabilitation teacher at the Colorado Department of Vocational Rehabilitation and has been there since 2011. But prior to that, she taught students with vision impairments in Aurora schools and spent many years before that in Auckland, New Zealand, also working with individuals with vision loss. And her husband at the time also had vision loss. So she was living that experience day to day through him and the experiences he had with needing to advocate for himself. And then she's been helping others for many, many years. Learning skills, and one of those skills is advocacy. We think of other types of skills, but I'm sure, Loraine, as you're teaching people orientation and mobility and accessibility in the workplace, all these things, that advocacy does come up.
Oh, absolutely. And as you mentioned before, I've worked in various different settings when I was with the school system, and when I lived in New Zealand, I was working at a school for the blind. We were teaching little kids to start to learn to advocate for themselves. In the classroom, I need to sit up closer to the board. I'm not able to read this material. I need magnification. There is a tendency for a lot of people, if they have a child who is vision impaired or blind, to take over and do the talking. And really, you get a bit of learned helplessness. So it's very important to foster independence and speaking up for yourself, really right from the get-go with children. And then later on, of course, when they become adults, hopefully that skill is ingrained.
Sure. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that. I always start the program with just a few questions so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Loraine, would you rather have cake or pie?
Oh, pie. Absolutely. Because you get to put ice cream on it.
That's true, right?
I
thought about that. Would you rather have dinner with 1 or 2 close friends, or would you rather be at a big party?
Oh, gosh. I think 1 or 2 close friends. Yeah, because I'd have more chance to chat and hobnob. Large parties are fun. I'm quite an extrovert, but I often don't get around to enough people. So, and that would be my preference.
If you had a superpower, would you rather have super strength or would you rather be able to become invisible?
Oh, super strength. Because I like physical activity and I'd like to climb Mount Everest, for example,
There
for a
you go. If
start.
you had that little extra strength, you'd have that boost.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, do physical things.
Well, thank you, Loraine. That just gives folks a little bit of insight into you and your personality as we're starting on our topic. So today we're covering advocacy kind of in a general sense, but then in future weeks and future episodes, we'll look at some specific things like advocacy in traveling situations, transportation, or in the medical arena, or in the workplace. But today we'll just kind of start with some of the general types of things.
This is Topic of the Month with Kim Wardlow. If you enjoy what you hear, please visit AIN Colorado for more shows, news, and articles read by our amazing staff and volunteers. If you have a question for Kim or would like to recommend a guest for future shows, please visit aincolorado.org/podcast-guest. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
Just from your experience, what are some of the hardest things to overcome when you're standing up for yourself or need to stand up for yourself? You mentioned some with young individuals, students and parents, children and parents, but what about when you're an adult and maybe you haven't grown up learning this type of advocacy or your whole life if you've lost vision later in life?
Well, I think certainly in the workplace, it's very, very difficult for people to want to ask for too much. I can think of a couple of examples. There was a woman I was working with in a hospital situation, and she was very impacted. She had some issues with her vision, but she also had some orthopedic problems with her lower back, and just some fatigue issues. And she because this is just around the time of COVID, really needed the job, but she really needed quite a few accommodations. And really the workplace should be providing those unless it impacts or causes undue hardship for like maybe a smaller company. But this was a fairly large hospital. And I went and met up with her supervisor, and she told us what she needed, and he flatly said, "No, I don't think we can do that for you." And then she just was too frightened to push it. So I jumped in kind of as an advocate, which is part of my job, and said, well, I'm sure DVR, Division of Vocational Rehab, can help you with those essential things that you need for your job. She was afraid that if she pushed it too much, she was so grateful for the job that they may just go, put her in the too hard basket, and then she wouldn't get hired.
So there really can be some fear in advocating for yourself or just feeling intimidated.
Well, absolutely. And then a lot of people, I've been working with a job skills training program. There are some people who are blind and low vision who are anticipating a job with perhaps a certain company are sometimes frightened to disclose their disability because they feel that, the future employer may just withdraw and be too frightened, be too worried about liability issues. So sometimes they don't disclose until they actually get hired, and then they're frightened to ask for too much. They might need some screen readers, some adaptive technology, and some other requirements, accommodations. So again, there's that fear factor, of gently introducing what you might need as an accommodation, but not asking for too much.
Finding a balance.
Finding a balance, right. Exactly.
Do you find that there are technologies or programs? I'm thinking of something like Be My Eyes that can help individuals where they're already connected to some things that can help them.
Do you mean in the workplace using Be My Eyes or seeing AI app or
Or seeing AI, like using an app. It wouldn't necessarily have to be in the workplace. But do you
oh yeah.
see those types of things, playing into helping people if they're trying to advocate for themselves to be able to know what their surroundings are, what they're looking at, those types of things?
Oh yeah, those things are certainly very, very helpful if you need immediate assistance. But it's interesting. Just the other day, I was talking to someone about Be My Eyes, which is free and it uses volunteers. It's an app on your phone which uses volunteers from all over the world. And she said to me, "Oh my, I wouldn't want to put all of those people, inconvenience them," she said. "I should be able to do this myself." And I said, "But look, these are volunteers. I'm one of them. I'm down. I want to be of assistance." And so it's interesting. "No, I don't want to bother these people," was her immediate response. But certainly those are very, very helpful if you need quick information. What's the other one that's I'm thinking of? Artificial intelligence, where you
The
can
Seeing
ring.
AI.
No. It's the other one. I've just had it drawn a blank, but it's expensive. You get 5 free minutes a month, and then the rest is fairly costly. It too, and I will find this out, and I'll think of it in a minute. Is an immediate. You call up, you have an app, and they are right there. They can help you if you're stuck and you need to know what intersection you're at. They can help you with a resume. They can help with all sorts of things. You've got a panel of people who have access to your camera, and it's a wonderful service, even if you're overseas, 24 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but if you need something at the workplace that's more complex, you really need to have something a little bit more permanent set up than these apps.
Sure.
And you don't want to be in a position where you're having to rely on that in the workplace, and that's where the training and adequate accommodation comes in place before you start your job or while you do.
Well, I know one thing that has come up for some of our staff here at AINC and people that are our listeners and others we've come into contact with that have guide dogs is that they've had to advocate for the right to be able to take their guide dog in with them if they're going into a restaurant or in a car, or there seems to be kind of this subset. There's the general advocacy, of course, that folks need to do, but there seems to be almost a subset of advocacy that people are needing to do if they have a guide dog. Have you
Oh,
seen that with some of your clients?
Oh, absolutely. I would say 2 weeks ago, I have one of my people that I work with lives in Rifle, Colorado, and he was going out to a Mexican restaurant, and he had his dog. And it's important when you have a dog that you work the dog as much as possible because they need that. And that's a commitment that you make to a guide dog school, that you're not going to let this dog just be sitting every day, but that you get out and you quote unquote work the dog. And he took the dog with him. And also he wanted to be independent, had his children with him, went into the restaurant, and they threw a fit. "Oh, no, you can't. This is, you can't bring a dog, that's an animal. And he said, well, actually, I can. And you don't even have to show the dog is registered with Seeing Eye or Guide Dogs for the Blind, whatever. It's obvious that the guy could not see, absolutely refused to let him in. So he asked to see the manager. Manager, same thing. So he said, well, I'm afraid I'm going to have to call the police because this is my right. This is a public law that I have a right as a blind person, and this is my service animal, my guide dog. So then the guy backs up. Okay, that's not necessary. So we'll let you in. But he said, I'll make a formal complaint online, and I hope you realize that this is against the law, what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I can cite so many more examples. People with Uber, people in the place that I live. There was a taxi company that refused to let guide dogs, and I spoke to them and talked to them as a state employee and said, no, I'm sorry, but you're incorrect. So it is a problem, and it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of service dogs out there. I think people that use it and they hide under this sort of umbrella of what's appropriate and not, what's allowed and not. So unfortunately, it makes it more difficult for those who have a genuine need for a service dog.
Do you feel that educating individuals about the fact that it is a law, a service dog is allowed in a restaurant, is allowed in an Uber, even if normally they wouldn't allow any other type of animal in, does that seem to be effective, that people maybe just didn't understand? Or do you still see resistance of people? Well, I know, but I don't care, and I'm just not going to let you in.
Well, I can actually give you another example that just happened. My former husband in New Zealand was he travels a lot, and he was wanting to get his new partner was going to hire a car with thrifty cars in New Zealand, and they refused. And this was a new employee, obviously had not been trained. And so when you say, is it beneficial for training? Absolutely, especially when you're providing a service to the public, like a car rental service, Uber, taxis, any public transportation. All those people should know. So this young guy was not trained. He refused. The manager was not there. They kept him waiting. And wrong person to say no to, because it was put in the paper. He's got a personal grievance lodged, and the person will probably be fined quite heavily. But yes, absolutely, to answer your question, it is worth it. I don't know if we can get around to all restaurants, but surely if I were running a restaurant, there are people that are blind and low vision come into restaurants. Their waiters and waitresses and people that work there should know about, okay, what if I get someone who wants a Braille menu and I don't have it? Then you offer to read out or have someone read out the specials, et cetera, and then know what to do if someone does come with a guide dog.
Those are really good tips, Loraine. Are there other situations that you've seen as you're working with individuals where they're needing to step up and advocate for themselves? Maybe, as you touched on earlier, maybe even within their own family or group of friends.
Oh, heavens, yes. Oh, gosh, I have thousands of anecdotes, but one just came up to me when you mentioned family members. There was a woman that I was working with who could see fairly well during the day. Retinitis pigmentosa is a fairly common eye disorder, which initially, would start often in adolescence, but affects night vision first. So difficulty seeing at night, and then eventually your peripheral vision is compromised, and you end up with tunnel vision and sometimes lose your sight completely. I had a woman who said, I just can't get my family to believe me. They just don't get at night that I'm stuck because I manage pretty well during the day. So I said, what if I make some simulated glasses and we reproduce as much as I can? I don't see what you see, but she told me pretty much the extent of her field deficit with her vision. And when from dusk she started to not be able to see. And I think that helped. And certainly when it got dark, trying to go out with these simulated spectacles and go, oh gosh, now my fields are very reduced and I can only see a little bit. And so I think that was helpful. I had to her, and then certainly improved with her children and her husband, to understand that she wasn't just making a big fuss over nothing. There was another young girl that I worked with in New Zealand. I remember I was absolutely flabbergasted. She had never been out her back door. And she was, by the time, I think, a junior high school student. And mom and dad were cutting her meat and just really doing far too much. So it's a fine line. I didn't want them to feel that they were doing a poor job as a parent. I guess they really didn't realize that they were overdoing it. But I tried to be very tactful in the advising and coaching them to give her a lot more responsibility and to allow me to work with her to get her outside. Because I really, then you could create another disability on top of the blindness. And that is just really not an awareness of how to look after your daily living needs.
Well, and that's so important for individuals to be able to be independent. And I think parents want that for their children, even if they're doing maybe too much for them at that time. They really do want them to be able to be independent and successful adults as well.
Well, yeah, and it is scary. I'm a parent, and actually, my husband would like to, my ex-husband wanted to take my daughter out when she was in a front pack and take her out walking to his parents with his cane. He did not have a dog in those days. And I, biting my fingernails, oh, my precious bundle. And I wasn't worried about him so much as the idiotic driver who maybe didn't see him or tried to get across the road just as he was crossing with my daughter. And so I understand their fear. I do. But we have to sometimes just let go and give our children or our wife or whomever it may be the opportunity to learn and learn some skills on their own. Will benefit them in the long run.
I agree. And advocacy is such an important skill to learn and is applicable in so many areas of our lives. Well, we're wrapping up our first episode here on advocacy and some of these general conversations, but we'll get deeper into some of these areas that we've touched on today in future episodes. So I hope that you will be looking for those podcasts coming up throughout the month. But also, we also still have Blindsight each week with a new guest and talking about different aspects of vision loss and living after losing vision, and all sorts of interesting things that people are doing after they've lost their vision, or even young folks too. We've had some kids that have been interviewed as well, and so that are growing up with that and learning to use technology and things. So those are always very interesting interviews with Penn Street. Thank you for listening today, and look for those additional podcasts through Audio Information of Colorado. You can find those podcasts through Spotify, Apple, or just go to our website, which is aincolorado.org. And if you would like to reach out to us, you can go to that website, aincolorado.org/podcast-guest, if you have feedback for us. And we always appreciate that feedback. Thank you for joining us today.